Thank you for watching Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. Following are the news which have been reported by top American channels. Now the headlines. Advanced technology could not prevent the Baltimore bridge. Trump's social media company Truth is making profit. Israeli celebrating during war. Hunter Biden tax case. Atlanta racial case. Israel continue bombing Lebanon and Gaza. Differences between US authorities and Israel are decreasing. UN says 20% food is waste in the world. Thailand same-sex marriage law. Florida and Walt Disney. Canadian in Haiti and the Nova Scotia massacre. French president in Brazil on 3-day visit to Brazil. 2 bodies have been recovered from Baltimore bridge collapse. Principal resign on hijab controversy.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S. Supreme Court appears set to preserve access to the abortion pill mifepristone, which is used for roughly 2/3 of all abortions in the United States. Oral arguments were held Tuesday in a case brought by a group of anti-choice medical associations, which have sought to overturn moves by the FDA to increase accessibility to the drug, which was first approved over 20 years ago. On Tuesday, several justices questioned if the doctors even had standing to bring the challenge. Abortion rights activists rallied outside the Supreme Court ahead of the ruling.
This decision should not be held by a couple of justices. It's a decision between a doctor and a family, and that's how it's always been. And let's be clear, it's safe and accessible and has been for over 20 years, with hundreds of thousands of people using this medicine.
We'll have more on the Supreme Court hearing after headlines. The official death toll in Gaza is nearing 32,500 as Israel continues its assault in defiance of a UN Security Council resolution calling for a Ramadan ceasefire. On Monday, an Israeli airstrike killed Sahar Akram Ryan, a longtime correspondent for the Palestinian news agency Wafa. His son was also killed in the attack. By one count, 136 journalists have been killed so far in Gaza. On the humanitarian front, UNICEF's James Elder says the hunger crisis in Gaza is worsening as Palestinian families struggle to find food to eat.
A week ago, I was in Kamal Adwan Hospital where we've had those reports of 20+ children dying of malnutrition and dehydration. When I was there, I saw a room full of mothers and carers, not always mothers, some mothers have been killed, carers shuddering over children who are paper thin, absolutely paper thin, incubators full of babies who are born prematurely because of the stress on mothers, also malnourished.
On Tuesday, UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese accused Israel of committing acts of genocide. She spoke in Geneva about her major new report.
Following nearly 6 months of unrelenting Israeli assault on occupied Gaza, it is my solemn duty to report on the worst of what humanity is capable of and to present my finding, the anatomy of a genocide. History teaches us that genocide is a process, not a single act. It starts with the dehumanization of a group as other and the denial of that group's humanity, and ends with the destruction of the group in whole or in part. The dehumanization of Palestinians as a group is the hallmark of their history of ethnic cleansing, dispossession, and apartheid.
In Washington, D.C., U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant Tuesday. Austin said the civilian death toll in Gaza has been, quote, far too high, but he vowed the U.S. would keep arming Israel. A new report by the arms control group SIPRI found 69% of all arms imported by Israel, that's over 2/3, come from the United States. The group said U.S. weapons, particularly warplanes, have played a major role in Israel's attacks on Gaza and Lebanon. Meanwhile, the State Department spokesperson Matt Miller said the Biden administration's not found Israel's actions in Gaza to be in violation of U.S. or international law.
We have not found them to be in violation of international humanitarian law, either when it comes to the conduct of the war or when it comes to the provision of humanitarian assistance.
President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris spoke in Raleigh, North Carolina Tuesday. A group of pro-Palestinian activists interrupted the president while he talked about his record on health care.
A patient with heart disease, diabetes, or a child with asthma couldn't get coverage. Why? Because the insurance company considered those a pre-existing condition, allowed them to deny coverage. Everybody deserves health care. They have a point. We need to get a lot more care into the process.
In Lebanon, 7 paramedics have died in an Israeli airstrike on an emergency health center in the town of Habrea. Lebanon's health ministry condemned the attack as a violation of the Geneva Convention. Hezbollah responded by firing dozens of rockets into northern Israel. 1 factory worker reportedly died in Israel. Authorities in Maryland fear 6 missing construction workers died on Tuesday when the Francis Scott Key Bridge partially collapsed after a massive cargo ship crashed into a support column. Just prior to the accident, the crew on the 95,000-ton cargo ship sent an urgent mayday call after the ship lost power, possibly due to contaminated fuel. The warning gave authorities on land the chance to limit bridge traffic, but 8 construction workers were still on the bridge where they'd been fixing potholes. Only 2 of the workers were rescued on Tuesday. The missing workers include a Salvadoran father of 3, named Miguel Luna, a Honduran father of 2, named Menor Yasir Suazo Sandova, 2 Guatemalan men, and at least 1 Mexican national. We'll have more on this story later in the show. A court in Russia has extended Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich's pretrial detention until at least June 30th. Friday will mark 1 year since Evan was detained on espionage charges while he was on a reporting trip. Police in India detained dozens of protesters Tuesday as they attempted to march to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's residence in New Delhi. The protest came in response to last week's arrest of Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, who's a prominent critic of Modi. This all comes as part of a political crackdown ahead of national elections in India, which begin in April. The New York judge presiding over Donald Trump's hush money trial has imposed a partial gag order on the former president, barring him from attacking witnesses, jurors, court staff, and others. In his order, Judge Juan Merchan noted Trump's history of making, quote, threatening, inflammatory, and denigrating comments. The criminal trial begins April 15th. NBC News has reversed its decision to hire Ronna McDaniel, the former chair of the Republican National Committee. Her hiring sparked a rare on-air revolt by many of the top anchors on NBC and MSNBC over her role in spreading Donald Trump's lies about the 2020 election. In campaign news, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has tapped the massively wealthy Silicon Valley attorney Nicole Shanahan to be his running mate. Shanahan's the former wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin. She gave over $4 million to fund a controversial Super Bowl ad for Kennedy, which resembled a 1960 commercial by his uncle John F. Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s run for the White House has been widely condemned by other members of the Kennedy family, in part due to his longtime advocacy against vaccines. Dozens of members of the extended Kennedy family met with Joe Biden at the White House last week to show their support for his re-election. And more details are coming to light about the federal probe into the music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. On Monday, federal agents raided his homes in Los Angeles and Miami. The investigation is being led by a team at the Department of Homeland Security, which focuses on human trafficking. In recent months, Combs has faced 5 separate lawsuits over sexual misconduct, including one lawsuit by a woman who accused Combs of raping her and forcing her into sex trafficking. Combs' lawyers have issued a statement proclaiming his innocence while criticizing federal agents for using what they called military-level force during the House raids. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now! Co-host Juan
the squatter scam once and for all.
And it is a scam. I know somebody in New York, 4.5 years, a squatter stayed in somebody else's house. Now, the governor of Florida also recently signed a bill banning any children in the state under the age of 14 from having a social media account. After years of research has now revealed the serious dangers that these online platforms are posing to our kids. Anyway, joining us now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, great to have you. You know, I doubt when you got into politics that you ever imagined a day where you'd be hearing story after story after story of, you know, people just commandeering other people's homes and then the courts protecting them. I know a case in New York. It went on 4.5 years before they were finally legally allowed to take back their home. Is this America?
Well,
this doesn't sound like the America I know. What?
No, Sean. And I mean, you think about things like, this idea of squatting when Americans were settling like the Old West, you'd go, you didn't know who owned it, there weren't records. So if people started a community there, then someone came 6 or 7 years later and claimed it was theirs. Well, that was different. It's an adverse possession. It was never intended that you could just go into some subdivision and break into a house and start living there and then all of a sudden have all these rights vested. In New York, there was a case, and it was reported, where the homeowner went when someone had taken over her house, and the police did not evict the squatters. The police ended up arresting the homeowner. What kind of a country is that? And so, like, on so many issues, what New York does, what California does, Florida will do the opposite. And so the squatter scam ends today with our legislation. And it's important because, Sean, you know now, being a Florida resident, we've got people that will be here for 7 months of the year, and then they'll go to Michigan or New York or even Canada. So what, you come back after the summer and someone's in your house and then they just get to stay there for 6 months? Now in Florida, you call up, you fill out a form, sheriff comes, and the sheriff kicks them out of your property.
Yeah, and by the way, and I've owned property in Florida for over 20 years. Now I am a domiciled resident, permanent resident of Florida. I have my Florida license to prove it if you want to see it, and every other legal thing that I had to do. But it's even worse than that. People can start out, maybe they'll pay the first month's rent, then they'll never pay again. And if you try to kick them out, you're right. The home that you were describing was a case that was over $1 million, that property, and they arrested the homeowner. And I'm thinking to myself, what country is this that they arrest the homeowner and the squatter gets to stay in that person's house? You can't make that up.
Well, and it's like the private property rights, that's the bedrock of a free society and a constitutional republic. And what I think the left is doing, what some of these activists are doing, heck, even the illegal aliens are going on social media and talking about squatting and urging other foreign nationals to come to this country illegally and commandeer property. If we don't have private property rights, we will not have a free society. So it is the bedrock. Florida stands by that. We're proud to do it. And Sean, it's like yet another reason why people are going to choose to flee from the New Yorks and the California and end up coming down here to the Sunshine State.
Let me tell you, you have baby boomers that have yet to retire, people that have just gotten fed up with the crime, the high taxes, the way of life. They're going to be leaving in droves for the next 2 decades. I don't think this migration is ending anytime soon. Let me ask you about social media and kids and 14-year-olds, and because there is a lot of danger. There are predators out there that are targeting our children online. You were very successful with this legislation. I think it's been misconstrued by some in the media. Not a big shock to you, but your reaction.
Yeah, so basically, look, I'm a dad, Sean. I've got a first grader, kindergartner, or preschooler. So my wife and I are thinking as they get older, what does this landscape going to even look like? And the reality is it's hard for parents to keep up with everything that's out there. And so what our legislation says is for 14 and 15-year-olds, social media companies cannot issue them their own social media account unless the parent consents. So then this way the parent can kind of know the dangers and then make that decision. 13 and under, social media companies cannot issue an account. And here's the thing, under 13 is already prohibited under federal law. It's just not enforced. So you do have 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds who have these. What we've said is we're not really regulating the use. I mean, if a 12-year-old has something, it's not really about that. It's about holding the social media companies accountable. If a parent wants to have a social media account and let their 11-year-old use it, they are free to do it under there. So I think it strikes the right balance to try to help parents navigate this really perilous landscape. And you're right, the predators, you used to have to worry about the predator if the kid's out in the neighborhood and someone would come by in like a van. Now the predator can come right into your house. The kid can be there. Your kid can be just safe as can be. And then through that internet and through those social media apps. So I think we struck a good balance here. And here's the thing, Sean, we're not talking about the content. We're talking about apps and social media networks that have addictive qualities. So if they don't have the addictive qualities, then the bill doesn't even apply in that situation.
You know, I know a group of parents that actually have all come to an agreement, no cell phones for their kids until 8th grade. I actually thought it was a great decision. And many of the parents, what they have decided to do, I haven't had a landline in years. I don't know about you, Governor, but I don't even know what one looks like anymore. And they just decided if they allow any phone use, it's going to be a landline in their house that they can hear the conversation in. I thought pretty creative idea.
It's interesting, Sean. So last year, we did a bill that I signed that said school districts could say no cell phones during class time. There was a huge uproar about that. People were saying that somehow this was, too restrictive. And yet what's happened this school year, the kids are learning better. Everyone's happier because the attention is on what's happening in the classroom. I'd also say, just as a parent, my wife and I have talked about this. Our kids are too young to have any phones. We've decided that when they do get a phone, probably not going to be a smartphone. It's going to be one of those old flip phones that we used to have where they can make a call if they need anything from us, but we don't have to worry about all the hundreds of different apps. And here's the thing, Sean, too. Apart from all the really significant harms with the predators, it's not healthy to have kids buried in their phones 8 hours a day.
Thanks for being with us, Governor Ron DeSantis. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
If we can stop traffic, just make sure no one's on the bridge right now, if there's a crew out there.
Tonight, police had just 90 seconds to stop traffic on Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. The new details as the investigation intensifies.
Based on sonar scans, we firmly believe that the vehicles are encased in superstructure and concrete that we tragically saw it come down.
Plus, what we're learning about the victims, fathers, husbands, who came to America for a better life.
They were people who were very honest, hardworking people.
The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for being with us. We do want to be doing some breaking news because Maryland officials have just announced that they've recovered the first bodies from the water after that deadly bridge collapse, and authorities also revealing they are now shifting to a new phase. Investigators today were on board that cargo ship interviewing the crew and collecting evidence. The Navy says they're going to bring in barges into the port that will be outfitted with these heavy lift cranes to help clear the channel. Now, the cranes, which have a lift capacity of up to 1,000 tons, will be used along with other support vessels to remove the submerged portions of the bridge. The Biden administration saying today it's going to work aggressively to reopen the port of Baltimore, which handles $200 million worth of cargo on a single day. We're also getting new details about the victims who were working in the middle of the night on the bridge. One was just 26 years old. Another victim's brother tells CBS News his brother was a hard worker, saying, quote, if he could work every hour, every day, he would. These are just some heartbreaking stories tonight. Let's bring in CBS's Chris Van Cleve. He will start us off from Baltimore, where new details are coming in. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Nora. Maryland State Police just told us it was this morning when divers spotted a red pickup truck about 25 feet under the surface of the water. Inside were the first two bodies. They've been able to locate two of the missing. Those families have now been notified of their loved ones passing, and the investigation now is ramping up. This scene of destruction and loss remains frozen, but tonight praise for the crew's critical Mayday call.
There's a ship approaching and just lost their steering. We got to stop all traffic.
Giving police a couple minutes warning, the powerless ship was on a collision course with the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
If not for several factors, including those responders' efforts, the Mayday call, the maintenance closure that was already underway, and the time of day of this impact, the loss of life might have been in the dozens.
Tragically, the search and rescue efforts of yesterday turned into a grim mission of recovering the bodies of the 6 people who are presumed dead. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy.
Our investigation can wait. The most important thing right now is to reunite families with their loved ones.
But that investigation is moving forward. The National Transportation Safety Board is analyzing the contents of the ship's voice data recorder. Despite challenging weather conditions, a team of investigators were on board the cargo ship Dolly gathering evidence. Among the things they'll seek to determine, was the ship's engine choked out by dirty fuel before it hit the bridge? Was there a world where this doesn't come down when it's hit this way?
And that's something we're going to have to look at, and we'll want to look at the design of the bridge as part of that.
New images from the FBI show the sonar searchers are relying on to help navigate the debris field. Dive team leader Brian Hudson on CBS Mornings.
It's a very dangerous situation underwater with the bubble still settling. It's not a great spot for divers. It's incredibly black water.
I want to start.
Secretary Buttigieg says repairs will take time, leaving one of the country's busiest ports shut down and its 8,000 workers in limbo. At least 2 cargo containers went overboard. 56 others on the ship hold hazardous material, though not considered a threat to the public. The ship's bow is said to be resting on the river floor. The Coast Guard will have to refloat the more than 900-foot-long vessel to clear the waterway.
I think the main challenge here is removing those large trusses and steel members off the bow of the ship.
Maryland State Police also telling us tonight they're not able to reach the other bodies. They're going to need those Navy heavy lift cranes to clear some of that debris before they can recover the rest of the missing. The Navy, their plan is to get that waterway open as fast as possible so the port can resume operations, Nora.
I heard them calling this now a salvage operation. Chris Van Cleve, thank you so much. We are also learning new details about the victims of this tragedy. 6 construction workers who were all pursuing the American dream. CBS's Nicole Stanga spoke with a local pastor who knows the families.
A Baltimore City landmark, now a personal tragedy.
These were fathers, and these were sons, and these were husbands, and these were people who their families relied on.
We've determined the countries of origin of those that are presumed deceased to be Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras.
Miguel Luna, a father of 3, was originally from El Salvador. The 40-year-old left for work at 6:30 p.m. to fill potholes on the Key Bridge.
He's supposed to come in the morning back home and never come.
Maynor Yasir Suazo Sandoval would have celebrated his 35th birthday next month. He believed in giving back and donated to a children's soccer league in Honduras. His brother prays his body is found so they can bring him back to be buried.
We know that they were hard workers. We know that they love soccer. We know that they love, their families and the community.
Jesus said, call no one good, but these were good men.
Father Walker has been mourning alongside families.
My advocacy is that we don't abandon these families, that we come together as a Baltimore community.
A community these men loved. This bridge was a symbol of America.
We feel so proud that they trust us to repair this beautiful bridge that have a huge history in our nation. And that is an example of our contribution.
Tuesday's bridge collapse marks the second time in 1 year construction workers were killed on the job along the same highway in the city of Baltimore. Last March, 6 highway workers were struck fatally by a speeding car. Nora?
Nicole Stanga, thank you. Let's turn now to some more breaking news. We just learned that former Senator and Vice Presidential nominee Joe Lieberman has died following complications from the fall. He was 82 years old. CBS's Major Garrett, our chief Washington correspondent, is here with us. We covered him many years up there on the Hill. 24 years as senator, made history as the first Jewish vice presidential nominee. How do you think he'll be remembered?
As a serious, sober, and deeply morally grounded United States senator. You don't always put those 3 things together, Nora. And also, Joe Lieberman's life in the Senate and American politics is also kind of a microcosm of regional and ideological changes within the Democratic Party. So he arrives in Washington in 1989 as a quiet centrist Democrat, replacing a brash liberal Republican, Lowell Weicker. He's an early advocate of Bill Clinton, and he's a strong supporter of the Clinton administration's policies. But he breaks with Bill Clinton memorably over Monica Lewinsky and the extramarital affair there. He doesn't vote to impeach, but he rebukes him, and that stings. He also gets the attention of Al Gore, becomes his running mate in 2000. But as he continues his political career, he becomes more and more estranged from the Democratic Party. An advocate, a fierce advocate of the Iraq War. 2003, runs for president. 2004, progressive Democrats give him no traction whatsoever. In 2006, he's defeated for re-election by a Democrat, runs as independent, and wins. But in December 2007, he endorses John McCain, completing his estrangement from the Democratic Party. So in that sense, this centrist Democrat finds himself more and more alienated from the Democratic Party, Nora, until he comes back in the fold in 2016 and 2020, endorsing Hillary Clinton and then Joe Biden.
He'll be known as an independent in many ways. Yes, Major Garrett, thank you.
Sure.
Now to a CBS News exclusive. We're hearing for the first time from the family of a former Boeing manager who became a whistleblower. John Barnett died by an apparent suicide earlier this month before completing his deposition in a lawsuit against the airline manufacturer. He had accused Boeing of repeatedly ignoring safety issues. CBS's Mark Strassman spoke with his mother and brother.
He thought of himself as trying to do the right thing.
Vicky Stokes' son, John Barnett, worked at Boeing for 32 years, the last 7, as a quality manager at the South Carolina factory that builds the 787 Dreamliner.
How did he tell you he was being treated?
He was like embarrassed at meetings. He would be called out.
Not the type of back down.
No, sir.
In a whistleblower lawsuit, Barnett alleged a litany of safety concerns, stray titanium shavings falling into electrical wiring, defective oxygen tanks, and managers urging him to cut corners. In this 2022 Netflix documentary, Barnett claimed his managers retaliated against him for speaking up.
Boeing quit listening to their employees. So every time I'd raise my hand and say, hey, we got a problem here, they would attack the messenger and ignore the message.
In this hotel parking lot, Barnett was found dead from a gunshot wound in his car on March 9th. While police are still investigating, the coroner says it appears to be a suicide.
Do you blame Boeing?
I think if this hadn't gone on so long, I'd still have my son. My sons would still have their brother, and we wouldn't be sitting here. So in that respect, I do.
Barnett's death occurred as depositions continued and as Boeing grapples with weeks of headlines about its safety culture, specifically repeated problems with its 737 MAX planes, including a mid-flight blowout of an Alaska Airlines door. Barnett worked on a different plane, but raised similar concerns.
He wasn't trying to hurt Boeing, he was trying to save Boeing. He saw this coming, and he said at some point, this is all going to come down on Boeing.
In the middle of Boeing's reputational crisis, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun announced he's stepping down. In a statement today, Boeing said, "We're saddened by Mr. Barnett's passing, and our thoughts are with his family and friends." I asked Rodney Barnett about his brother's legacy.
That's all he wanted. That's all he wanted. Just the safety of the public.
He thought that was at stake.
That he knew that was at stake, and that's what he was concentrating on.
Barnett's family hopes to carry on his whistleblower lawsuit against Boeing after 7 years of litigation. It's scheduled for trial this September. Nora?
Mark Strassman, thank you very much. Tonight, there's big news from the Big Apple. Driving into the city could get more expensive. The Metropolitan Transit Authority in New York has given the green light to congestion pricing. That's something a lot of other cities will be looking at. The plan, the first in the U.S., calls for a $15 toll on cars entering Midtown Manhattan. The money would go towards mass transit projects, but it's not a done deal. Multiple lawsuits have been filed to block it, including by small business owners worried about the impact on their customers. Texas's tough new immigration law remains on hold after a federal appeals court extended a block on a rule that would allow the state to arrest and deport migrants suspected of illegally crossing the border. Texas has already mounted an aggressive border operation, which the governor says has resulted in migrant crossings moving away from the Lone Star State and then towards Arizona, a much more dangerous route. CBS's Camila Montoya Galvez got a first-hand look from above.
Out here, there is nothing.
This desolate stretch of the Arizona border is one of the deadliest for migrants. Each day, federal agents take to the skies. Their search for people in distress often turns into a rescue mission.
You've had to rescue migrants. Oh, absolutely.
And children, too.
Oh, children, women, older folks.
In its latest annual count, Border Patrol reported a record 895 migrant deaths, 142 of them here in the Tucson sector. This is one of the most remote sections of the U.S.-Mexico border. It is also now the busiest Border Patrol sector for illegal crossings. Migrants from across the globe are using gaps in the border wall, just like this one, to enter the U.S. As Texas has become more hostile to migrants, the number of people crossing in Arizona has soared. Most are looking to claim asylum.
How long was your journey from Nepal?
Just take too long. Why did you come?
Political problem. Political problems in Nepal?
Yes. In Texas, migrant crossings have plunged by over 50% since late last year. Now, more than 60% of all border crossings are occurring in Arizona and California.
Governor Abbott has credited his policies for that geographic shift, if you will. Is that accurate?
Hard to say. Could it have had some impact? Sure. Is it the one panacea that's caused that's corrected the problem? I don't think that's a fair statement.
Officials worry the warmer weather will bring more migration and deaths.
Nobody wants to see someone die. That is the absolute worst part of this job.
But unfortunately, one they're seeing more often. Camila Montoya Galvez, CBS News, near Sassavie, Arizona.
Tonight, some rough weather is heading toward the East Coast. Heavy rain is forecasted from the deep south all the way to Maine on Thursday. There's also the potential for flash flooding. Baseball's opening day games have been postponed in New York and Philadelphia. Tonight, we're getting our first look inside the LA home of Sean Diddy Combs after the federal raid. We're learning guns were seized and more. We've got the details next. New images reportedly show the aftermath of the federal raids at the homes of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Footage obtained by TMZ appears to show drawers emptied, documents scattered, and safes opened and searched at his LA home. Guns, cell phones, and other electronics were seized in the raids. Combs' attorney says he has cooperated with authorities and denies any wrongdoing. Somebody struck it rich on the Jersey Shore. It happened at this liquor store in Neptune. That's where the one winning ticket was sold in the $1.1 billion Mega Millions drawing. It's the 8th largest jackpot in U.S. history. Another big prize is up for grabs. Tonight's Powerball jackpot has grown to $865 million. A lot of Americans are sneezing and wheezing more than ever. We'll show you why when we come back.
If you can't watch the CBS Evening News, you can listen. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You've probably noticed that winter is getting warmer and spring's starting sooner. Sounds great, right? Well, not if you're affected by pollen. One recent study found that the average allergy season is now 20 days longer than it used to be. Sorry about that. CBS's Dave Malkoff reports climate change is forcing Americans to adapt.
Dallas is getting a bit wild this week, but it's not dog hair that's clogging up Dick Morrison's head. It's the severe pollen season.
It's just longer. So where it used to be 2 weeks, now it's about 3 months.
Roughly 60 million people in the U.S. suffer from allergies, including Michael Welsh. For him, just getting through the day requires a weekly, custom-mixed allergy shot.
What happens if you don't get that shot once a week?
My allergies go wild. Watery eyes, a running nose, I start sneezing.
Pollen really is everywhere. This is not just you. In fact, between 1990 and 2018, there was a 21% increase in pollen. That study, done by Professor William Andrick.
Pollen seasons are starting earlier and getting worse with more pollen in the air.
Is this because of the heat? Is this because of the extra carbon in the air?
It seems to be a combination of everything, but that said, it really seems like the heat is one of the biggest drivers.
This past winter was the warmest on record across the continental U.S. Fewer days below freezing, allowing plants to bloom earlier and longer. New data released this month from the nonprofit Climate Central shows allergy season coast to coast is growing. For Portland, the 2023 season was 23 days longer when compared to 1970. In Philly, it's 31 days. In Dallas, it's 17 days longer. At Dr. Brett West's office, that's led to a 30% uptick in patients this year. And if you're thinking, I don't get allergies like everyone else.
Just because you never had dog or cat or pollen allergies growing up, it can develop at any time.
Dr. West says if you suffer from allergies, make sure you're staying on top of your symptoms with medication. Try and limit your exposure out here on high pollen days. But Nora, unfortunately, we're all going to have to start thinking about protecting ourselves much earlier and much longer than we used to.
The only downside of spring in my book. Yeah, Dave Malkoff, thank you so much. Heart of America is next with a group of strangers who banded together following a serious car crash.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Alexion. Call us and ask us about events for GMG.
Finally, tonight's Heart of America, meet a group of Good Samaritans in Daytona Beach, Florida. This scary accident in the middle of a busy intersection on Tuesday afternoon turned into a feel-good story after total strangers came to the aid of the driver and police. At least 9 people jumped out of their vehicles to help. The first passerby ran to make sure the driver was okay before helping the others flip the SUV onto its wheels. Well, thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. So, the Good Samaritans of Daytona Beach, tonight's Heart of America. And that is tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Nora O'Donnell. Good night.
Tonight, the grim discovery and the search for answers after that catastrophic bridge collapse in Baltimore. Officials just moments ago announcing 2 bodies have been recovered after that massive cargo ship rammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge, bringing it crashing down. Our team out on the water, where crews are still searching for at least 4 other missing, presumed dead. Among them, a father of 6. The NTSB locating the ship's black box, the clues it may hold. Our full team coverage tonight. Also this evening, the deadly stabbing rampage in Illinois. At least
Tonight, breaking news coming in now. Authorities revealing they have recovered 2 of the bodies after the bridge collapse. And tonight, for the first time, the surveillance from the bridge itself and what it shows. Also breaking, we have just learned tonight, former vice presidential candidate Joe Lieberman has died. First tonight, the tragic headline just in from Baltimore. Search teams recovering the bodies of 2 workers on that bridge when it collapsed. The victims were still inside a red pickup truck. And tonight, you will see that surveillance showing flashing lights believed to be from those workers, the road crew, just before impact. Also, just moments ago tonight, we learned former Connecticut Senator and vice presidential candidate Joe Lieberman has died at the age of 82 after complications after a fall. What we've learned. The storms tonight, there are flood watches up right now from Florida all the way up to Boston. Bands of heavy rain moving up the East Coast. Rob Marciano timing it out. Breaking news tonight, a horrific scene unfolding in Rockford, Illinois. At least 4 people killed in a stabbing spree through a neighborhood. Several others badly injured, what police revealed just a short time ago. Tonight, disturbing allegations what the Utah women's basketball team allegedly endured as they traveled for a game in Idaho. The head coach says players were victims of racial hate crimes, racial slurs from men in pickup trucks speeding by multiple times. In New York City tonight, the first in the nation congestion pricing plan set to begin, charging drivers a $15 toll to enter Midtown Manhattan to reduce traffic and raise billions for mass transit and infrastructure. Drivers tonight sounding off. The race for the White House tonight with Donald Trump's daughter-in-law now running the Republican National Committee. ABC News confirming the potential employees are now being asked, was the 2020 election stolen? Do they believe the false claim from Donald Trump? Also developing the new images from inside Sean Diddy Combs' home in Los Angeles, the images TMZ has obtained amid the sweeping federal sex trafficking investigation, what we've learned. And right here tonight, the contestant on Wheel of Fortune who guessed the puzzle with 1 letter. Can you solve it? We'll show you.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Wednesday night. We are back from Baltimore this evening with several breaking stories as we come on the air this evening. Former Connecticut Senator and Vice Presidential candidate Joe Lieberman has died at 82 after a fall. John Carl on this in a moment. But we do begin tonight with the discovery. Search teams have now recovered the bodies of 2 workers who were on that Baltimore bridge when it collapsed. Their bodies found underwater, still inside a red pickup truck. Tonight there was also news from the investigation. NTSB agents boarding the ship now, retrieving the data recorder, the ship's black box, and interviewing the crew still on board. And for the first time here tonight, the new images, a traffic camera on the bridge itself just before the accident. The ship slowly approaching from the right, those flashing lights believed to be the construction crew, the workers on that bridge. Then what came next? The 1.6-mile Francis Scott Key Bridge coming down almost entirely. Just extraordinary images to see. Tonight, that news just coming in, the discovery now of some of the bodies in that river. Gio Benitez leading us off from Baltimore tonight.
Tonight, authorities recovering 2 bodies from the river and searching for 4 people still missing after that catastrophic bridge collapse in Baltimore.
Divers located a red pickup truck submerged in approximately 25 feet of water in the area of the middle span of the bridge. Divers recovered two victims of this tragedy trapped within the vehicle.
Those victims identified as 35-year-old Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes and 26-year-old Dorlian Cabrera.
Today, we transitioned from search and rescue to recovery. We need to bring a sense of closure and comfort to the families.
Chilling new security camera video from that doomed bridge showing the final minutes before disaster. Those flashing lights on the right side of the Francis Scott Key Bridge believed to be a construction crew filling potholes early Tuesday. And in the water, off to the right, the Dolly, that 95,000-ton cargo ship. The crew reported losing power and steering, issuing a mayday before slamming into the bridge. The camera cutting out, the bridge collapsing. 8 construction workers on that bridge plunging into the river, 2 surviving. Still missing and presumed dead, Miguel Luna, a father of 3 from El Salvador, and Minor Suazo Sandoval from Honduras, a father of 2. Sandoval's brother Martin saying he was the fundamental pillar of the family. Divers back in the chilly, murky waters today, also using underwater drones to search for the victims. And it's raining again now here in Baltimore. All day long, we've been seeing these weather conditions affecting those recovery efforts. And even underwater, it's very dangerous for the divers with all that mangled metal. For the first time today, federal investigators boarding that nearly 1,000-foot-long cargo ship, now reviewing the vessel's data recorders and interviewing crew members still on the ship, saying they are cooperating. The main focus tonight, why that ship suddenly lost power and control. Investigators looking at several possibilities, including whether contaminated fuel played a role.
We don't have a confirmed answer as to what exactly the power issue was. We know that the power issue connected and meant it was an inability for there to be proper steering and proper adjustments on the vessel, but we do not have any further details as of yet until a further investigation is complete.
That ship passing inspections in 2023. The Singapore Port Authority saying in a statement the ship experienced momentary loss of propulsion Tuesday and was unable to maintain the desired heading and collided with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And tonight, more praise for the authorities who in the roughly 90 seconds between the ship's mayday call and the moment of impact stopped traffic on the bridge.
Hold on traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching has just lost their steering.
Likely saving lives.
If not for several factors, including those responders' efforts, the mayday call, the maintenance closure that was already underway, and the time of day of this impact, the loss of life might have been in the dozens.
And David, just moments ago, the Coast Guard said that the ship was undergoing engine maintenance in the port before it lost power and crashed into the Key Bridge. David.
You'll continue to follow it for us. Gio Benitez again tonight. Gio, thank you. We have also just learned tonight that former Connecticut Senator and Vice Presidential candidate Joe Lieberman has died at 82 after complications from a fall. He was admired by colleagues on both sides of the aisle and often worked to find consensus in a polarized country. Here's our Chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Carl.
Joe Lieberman, who came within a few hundred votes in Florida of becoming the first Jewish vice president in American history, had a career that was defined by breaking barriers and breaking down party lines. He served 4 terms in the Senate, representing his home state of Connecticut, a progressive on most domestic issues, but a hawk on foreign policy. Lieberman was one of the leading Democratic supporters of both wars in Iraq. In 2000, Al Gore tapped him to be his running mate, making Lieberman the first Jewish American nominated on a major party ticket. In the Senate, Lieberman struck up an alliance with Republican John McCain. Unafraid of defying fellow Democrats, he often irritated members of his own party, so much so that he lost the Democratic primary for his seat in 2006. But he came back to win anyway as an independent. He endorsed his friend John McCain for president in 2008, speaking at the Republican National Convention, and was even under serious consideration to be McCain's running mate. Independent until the end, Lieberman was a founder of No Labels, and active even in recent days in the efforts to come up with a bipartisan third-party ticket to challenge both Biden and Trump. Lieberman's family has put out a statement tonight praising his love of family, God, and America. He was 82 years old. David?
We are thinking of his family, and of course, so many can relate to complications after a fall, dying at just 82. And as you point out, John, admired by colleagues on both sides of the aisle. John, thank you. We're also tracking these major storms tonight. The East Coast bracing for several bands of heavy rain as it moves up the coast. Flood watches from Florida tonight all the way up through Boston. Several inches of rain expected along the coast, including Washington, D.C., New York, right into New England Thursday. Senior meteorologist Rob Marciano back with us tonight. Hey, Rob.
Hi, David. More rain and some snow for both coasts coming in. Here on the East Coast, we got flood watches up from Florida into North Carolina and up into New England as well, including parts of Chesapeake Bay. A low developing along off the coast is going to amplify that rain throughout the day tomorrow, and it really increase it not only across North Carolina but into the Boston area. We'll probably linger into Friday morning. Looking for 2 inches there, an inch here in New York City, but 3 to 4 inches locally across parts of the Mid-Atlantic. All right, those storms in the Pacific, you mentioned the first one coming into the Pacific Northwest tomorrow, and then on Saturday, storm number 2 swings into Southern California, and that is going to bring a widespread risk of seeing some flooding and mudslides through the weekend. David?
We'll track it right through the weekend with you, Rob. Thank you. We turn now to that breaking news from Rockford, Illinois tonight, 90 miles north and west of Chicago. The horrific scene unfolding right now. At least 4 people killed in a stabbing spree through a neighborhood. Several others badly injured, and what police revealed just a short time ago. Here's ABC's Alex Perez tonight.
Tonight, at least 4 people are dead and 5 others injured after a man went on a stabbing spree in and around Rockford, Illinois, west of Chicago. Rockford police saying the first calls came in around 1:15 p.m. The suspect first confronting a woman in her home.
The young lady ran from him. She got some stab wounds in her hands and her face. She's currently in the hospital, and she is intubated. She is in serious condition.
The suspect attacking multiple people throughout the neighborhood, including a postal worker, before being apprehended by a sheriff's deputy. Authorities now trying to make sense of this horrific crime.
Words can't even express my thoughts right now.
And David, authorities say a Good Samaritan who was trying to fend off that suspect was also injured. Investigators now working to determine a motive in all of this. David?
Alex Perez with late reporting tonight. Alex, thank you. We're learning more this evening about the disturbing allegations what the Utah women's basketball team allegedly endured as they traveled for a game in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. The head coach says players were victims of racial hate crimes, racial slurs from men in pickup trucks speeding by multiple times. Here's ABC's Kane Whitworth.
Tonight, police investigating the racial harassment of the University of Utah women's basketball team as they were staying in Idaho for the NCAA tournament. Some players were walking to dinner in Coeur d'Alene last Thursday night when, according to a police report, 2 lifted pickups were revving their engines and speeding by. The report states the trucks turned around and yelled a racial slur towards the group, some of the members African American. Officials saying one of the trucks displayed a Confederate flag. The threatening behavior continued after the dinner as the team was followed back to their hotel.
The same perpetrator continuing the racial slurs while revving their engines, which we believe was a serious threat to the safety of those students.
The NCAA saying they immediately worked to provide increased security for the team until they could be moved to a hotel 30 miles away in Spokane, Washington. Idaho's governor stating, "We fully reject racism in all its forms," and the mayor offering up an apology.
I offer my most sincere apology. We, all of us, stand with you. We embrace you.
And David, investigators are now speaking with the players that were impacted. The FBI is also in contact with local law enforcement. David?
All right, Kana Whitworth tonight. Thank you, Kana. And here in New York, the first in the nation congestion pricing plan set to begin soon, charging drivers a $15 toll to enter Midtown Manhattan. The plan aiming to reduce traffic in New York City and raise billions for mass transit and infrastructure. Tonight, drivers sounding off at your Stephanie Ramos.
Tonight, New York City becoming the first in the country to impose a fee for driving into the busy heart of Manhattan. Toll readers already installed around much of the city, ready to charge drivers $15 a day for traveling below 60th Street between 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on weekends. Trucks will pay up to $36 daily depending on size, and taxis and rideshare users will see a fee for each trip to, from, or within that zone.
New York has more traffic than any place in the United States, and now we're doing something about it.
The MTA says 700,000 vehicles enter this part of the city every weekday, and the new tolls will help curb congestion and possibly generate billions of dollars for improvements to mass transit. The plan makes some exemptions for buses, government, and emergency vehicles, and there are discounts for those who make less than $50,000 and for drivers already paying tolls at the tunnels. But for many New York City commuters, they're saying no thanks.
Another $15 just to get to work, which is it's absurd.
David, those U-toll readers are already installed behind me, but the plan still needs to be approved by the Federal Highway Administration, and there are several pending lawsuits in New York and New Jersey that could complicate implementation of this plan. But the MTA today saying they fully expect the tolls to kick in by June. David.
We'll see Stephanie Ramos tonight. Thank you, Steph. Now to the race for the White House tonight with Donald Trump's daughter-in-law now running the Republican National Committee. ABC News confirming this evening that potential employees are now being asked, was the 2020 election stolen? The false claim from Donald Trump. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, with Donald Trump's takeover of the Republican National Committee complete, installing his own daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, to run the RNC, ABC News has learned that the RNC is now asking anyone who wants to work for them if they believe Trump's false claim that the 2020 election was stolen. Donald Trump lost the 2020 election by 7 million votes, lost the Electoral College, and lost more than 60 cases challenging the election, some in front of judges appointed by Trump. And tonight, with 7 months to go before the presidential election, Trump is already trying to sow doubt on the next election.
And we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election in 2024.
For months, Trump had been plotting to shake up the RNC, asking Ronna McDaniel to step down, replaced with a member of his own family. As for that RNC question, whether job applicants believe Trump's false claims that the election was stolen, the RNC says we want experienced staff with meaningful views on how elections are won and lost. Tonight, the Biden campaign saying now Donald Trump is demanding fealty to his extreme anti-democratic beliefs to be part of his Republican Party. Former President Barack Obama will headline a major fundraising event in New York City tomorrow with President Biden and former President Bill Clinton. It comes as polls show the race as tight as ever in key battleground states after Biden's State of the Union address. Obama clearly knows just how close this election could be. David.
And you'll be following it every step of the way, Rachel. We appreciate it. When we come back here tonight, just in the new images from inside Sean Diddy Combs' home in Los Angeles and what they show amid this sweeping federal sex trafficking investigation. And then look at this tonight. The clue, just one letter revealed on the board. Can you solve it? The contestant did in a moment here. Tonight, TMZ obtaining new images inside Sean Diddy Combs' home in Los Angeles amid the federal sex trafficking investigation. The video taken after the mansion was raided by federal agents. Safes were opened, drawers pulled. They also raided his home in Miami. ABC News learning they allegedly found guns in both locations, seizing computers and electronics. Combs denying all allegations. There have been no charges. When we come back tonight, that stunning moment on Wheel of Fortune, just one letter revealed, and we'll let you try to solve it in a moment. To the index into the Wheel of Fortune contestant who stunned Pat Sajak, solving the puzzle with just one letter revealed. The category was on the map. Contestant Tom Stadnicki chose just one letter, S, and then he guessed it. S.
There we go, one S. Every letter worth $6,000.
Glacier Bay, Alaska.
Of course. How'd you do that?
Tom says he looked at a lot of maps prepared for the show. You can hear Pat saying, how the heck did you do that? When we come back here, the incredible dog found deep in the woods after being hit by a car and then saved. And you're going to see the drone and that tiny spot from above. Finally tonight here, Guinness the dog is going home. Tonight in South Amboy, New Jersey, an incredible rescue. 5-year-old Guinness, a German Shepherd Lab Hound mix, hit by a car outside his home. He ran into the nearby woods. His owners, Mary and Thomas, devastated, immediately starting to search for him. The search went on for days before they would eventually hear about the nonprofit Unmanned Search and Rescue Drone Team. After 6 hours of searching, suddenly they spot something. They zoom in and they see him.
Oh, wait. I got him. That's your dog.
Wait.
That's your dog.
Mary and Thomas racing to Guinness.
There you go. Excellent.
And right here tonight,
Hi, David.
Mary and Thomas at the vet about to pick up Guinness.
We are finally picking up our baby Guinness.
Guinness has some broken bones, but they tell us he'll be okay.
The doctor said the surgery went well, and he has a very long road recovery ahead of him.
They started a GoFundMe to help with surgery bills. Guinness getting stronger every day.
He's so excited to be home.
And tonight joining us too, hello David, Michael Parziali, the founder of that nonprofit USAR Drone Team, and his message.
There is help out there, and it comes in all shapes and forces, and you'll be surprised what can be done.
We're so glad that Guinness is home, giving mom kisses, and somebody get the drone team a Guinness too. Different kind. I'll see you soon. Good night.
Thank you for making world news.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Woodman. Have a good life.